We'll get back to the live music in just a minute, but first I want you to meet Lezlie Snyder. She's the creative director at Parkway Brewery, and thanks for having us here today. We really appreciate you opening your doors to Roots to Rock.
Well, thanks so much. We're excited to do it.
Now, Parkway is one of the first craft brewers in the Roanoke region, and what always impressed me is you guys were everywhere in those early years. You were telling me a great story about how you got your name. How did the name Parkway Brewery? Because Salem is not near the Blue Ridge Parkway. So how did it come about?
Well, that's true. Well, when we were first thinking about opening a brewery, we wanted to find a name that would tie us to the region because we really wanted to showcase all the great things about the Roanoke Valley in Southwest Virginia. So we had a list of names, and we kept checking them off. They were already taken, or they just weren't quite right. And we were reading the newspaper one Sunday, and they had a big article about the 75th anniversary of the Blue Ridge Parkway. And I looked at my husband, and I said, you know, Parkway, it's a great name. It's a great concept, you know, a road to fabulousness. And it's right by here. It goes through North Carolina. And he was like, yeah, I think that'd be perfect. And since we knew that, you know, the Parkway was having an anniversary, we figured that word's going to be coming up everywhere, and we'll just ride that one on to success. So it ended up being a great thing, and it was so weird because we fell into all these other connections with the Parkway. We were trying to name some of our first beers, and we had a friend that came in. He said, "Parkway, that's a great name. My grandfather was one of the bridge builders for the Parkway." And I was, what are you talking about? He said his grandfather was David Vasilio. They came from Italy. They moved to Roanoke Valley. He built a lot of the bridges, the stone bridges that are iconic on the Parkway. So one of our first beers was Bridge Builder, blonde, and that was one of our favorite icons. He had brought me a photo that had his actual grandfather in it with the bridge behind him, and it became one of our biggest icons. And we love the whole idea of a road and traveling and a journey, and we figured if we're going to showcase this region and Southwest Virginia, that the Blue Ridge Parkway is a perfect connection. And we talked to the Parkway people, and they were all for it too.
That's what I was going to say. I was like, I wonder if they would be interested in that, but it helped them out as well.
Yeah, that's great, because I called the woman down in Asheville, and she said they actually had that photograph that we did the art from, gigantic on the wall in the tourism center. And she knew the Vasilios, knew the story behind it, and she said, go for it. You know, it's a great thing. And it's been great because in North Carolina, when we first went into North Carolina, we went in that region, and they embraced it immediately because it's, well, the Parkway.
Yeah, another thing I like about Parkway is when you're drinking from one of your bottles, the bottle is as pretty as the beer.
Oh, well, thank you.
So, and I know you're partly responsible for that. Tell us your concept for creating these beautiful, and I'm looking at them above us, these beautiful bottle labels.
Well, when we first started, we had our master brewer, his wife just happened to be an artist, and we started talking about branding and what we could do to have an authentic feel. And at first we started talking about woodcuts and how we really liked the feel of a woodcut and how it looked. And she said, well, I can do paper cuts, and it's essentially the same thing. So I was like, okay, run with that. So she did us a paper cut for Bridge Builder, and I thought it was beautiful. I just loved it. So the first 4 beers, which are still our mainline beers, well, all but one, we had her do the paper cut. And then I have a graphic designer, Mike Domzalski, he puts the color on and does the type and kind of makes that piece of art look like Parkway art. And he's done a great job of tying it all together. And when I started using other local artists, when we started doing seasonal and one-off beers, I wanted to use as many local people as I could.
And you also do unusual partnerships, because I thought one of the most unusual partnerships was with Beth Macy and her first book, a Factory Girl beer. So talk about why you do these partnerships like beer and books. And
well, books and beer just fell in our lap. Beth Macy is a friend of ours. Her family was huge supporters of the brewery when we first opened. Her husband and sons worked in the back on the bottling line when we first opened to help us out. Her son's band plays here. And when she came up with the book Factory Man, we were sitting on my next door neighbor's porch talking about it and what a great concept it was. And I said, well, you know, this book, it's a regional book. It needs a local beer to go with it. And she was like, a beer for my book? And we all got excited. And, you know, her book was about the furniture industry. And my grandfather was a furniture man. His plant was right down the road where the county offices are. And I was like, oh, furniture's dear to my heart. Let's do this thing. So, you know, it was Factory Man with the book. I was like, well, you're our factory girl. Let's do it.
You all have become one of the best venues to see up-and-coming bands and great musicians. They come into the area and they stop here and play. Why was music important?
Well, my husband and I both were in the music business before we moved to Roanoke when we lived up in Richmond. He was a sound engineer. I was doing promotion for a record label. And music's just been, he was a musician, and we, you know, it's just always been a huge part of our life. So when we started the brewery, it was all about making beer, but we knew we're going to have a tap room. And I was like, well, let's have some music. If you're going to have a tap room, you know, you got to have more than just the beer to draw people, especially in this, what was a weird location at the time. So we started by booking friends of ours and anybody we could get to come through. We were lucky enough to be friends with Gary Jackson, who books up at the Harvester, and he would send people our way that he couldn't book. And, you know, we just started building, you know, a catalog of great musicians that keep coming back.
Well, we appreciate you letting us come in and stream Jazzalachian Playboys and letting us just come into basically your home.
Oh, well, thank you so much, and we're happy to do it. We want more people to know about the music we have here because I think it really helps the bands as well. There's a lot of bands that have played here for the first time playing, and now they're playing all over town, and that makes us feel good because we want to support the music and the artists and have a good cold beer while we're at it.
Thanks. And right now we're going to go back to Jazzalachian Playboys.